Hey friends, welcome back to Pages and Grace. If you're new here, my name is Jess. Today I'm going to talk about the books I read in the month of November. So it is December 1st and I am getting around to my reading wrap up. The soonest I have ever gotten around to a reading wrap up. I have, I think, only 5 or 6 books from the month of November. It was a very slow reading month, and you didn't see a lot of me here on YouTube during November. That was not intentional. There's a lot of stuff that happens in November in life. It's also the month that I lost my mom, so there's definitely a lot more internal things going on during the month of November. It's something like there's just this weight lifted off of me after November 29th passes, and I don't know, I can't explain it. It's probably just part of the grief process. But there's almost this fog and just inability to focus and stay on task for me during that time. I have recorded videos and you'll probably see some of those. I've been trying to kind of piece them together if they were a little rambly. I had a very slow reading month. I spent a lot of time with family. I picked up a lot of books in November, and I put down a lot of books in November, and none of them were just hitting right at that time. I don't know, even the light fluffy books were not, they just weren't doing it for me. So I made it through a few, and I made it through some really good books too. So we shall see. I don't see any rhyme or reason to what I actually made it through. There were 2 buddy reads and a book club book, so those 3 definitely got read, and that's the reason why. The others, I don't know, they just worked for me, kind of, and some of them I had to push myself to get through. The first one I'm going to talk about is actually a buddy read I did with like my best friend in the whole world, real life best friend since like middle school when we met. We have some similarity in book taste, but we do have some differences. Anyway, so I read it with her. It's Tasha over at The Busy Bookish Mom. I've known her since 5th grade, but Off the Beaten Path by Madison Wright is the book that we read throughout the month of October. I finished it at the very beginning of November. This is by Madison Wright. It was billed as like a clean, cute, sweet romance. I loved the small town aspect of it. I think the book got a lot of that realness of small town, so a lot of the books that I read get this small town, like, super sweet, all things are perfect, like everybody loves each other for the most part. And that's true. That's one part of small town living. But there's also, I don't know, not a lot of authors capture this well, and I think that this book definitely did a better job than most that I read. There's a lot more politics and struggles that go on than most books portray in the books, which is fine. It's not meant to be that way. But I really appreciated how this author wrote the small town. That really got me pulled in. So we have Wren and Holden, and Wren is renovating a cabin. She needs help with it. There's a single dad next door who happens to be a handyman and might help her out with it a little bit. I really enjoyed the story. It was sweet. It was fun. There were lots of moments that made me laugh. The struggle that I had with it was that it was a little too steamy for me. It wasn't open door. There were no explicit scenes, not even like fade to black. But the steam level of the scenes that were there were over my level of comfort and actual, like, over my level of comfort for a book. Was it technically not explicit? Yeah, but it was knocking on that door. So, just a heads up, it's a cute cover. It drew me in. It was just a little bit above my comfort level personally. So, do with that what you will. I ended up giving it 3 stars. It would have been 4-star, but there were a lot of very lustful scenes. Let's just say that. The next book I read was Mark of the Raven by Morgan Bussey. I read my first book by her, which was Winter's Maiden. Absolutely loved it. I really want to finish that series, but it's not even out yet, so I can't. So I had heard over and over from people that I need to read the Ravenwood Saga. I started that one. I almost went right to the next one and the next one, but I had other book club books I needed to get to, so I held off on it, and now I'm regretting it because I need to get back into it. So we have Lady Selene. She is the House of Ravenwood. She is a very dark main character, but she comes by it honestly from her family. At a certain age, they are gifted, and they then learn the secrets of the family's secret. Each house has been gifted something different, and as she's going through this, she starts to have her eyes opened to things that are going on in her family and the larger community. She starts to question if this is really the path that she should be following, and the repercussions if she doesn't, and all these different things. I love the journey that Lady Selene goes on throughout this book. I am very new to Christian fantasy, and I am here for it. It has been so much fun. This book specifically, I can't wait to get into the next one. I just filmed my December TBR, and that second book wasn't on there. I was sitting here just rethinking about this from the book that I read at the beginning of November, and it should have been. The next book is Designated Friend by Drew Taylor. I have followed Drew on Instagram for a while, and I really wanted to pick up one of her books, so I started with this one. This is the one of 2 road trip books that I read this month, so I'm trying to keep them straight in my mind. I don't normally try to do that, but it just happened this month. My lovely husband brought me coffee, so I can keep going. In The Designated Friend, we follow Braxton and Hadley. My dog's tag. So in The Designated Friend, we follow Braxton and Hadley, and Braxton has been secretly in love with his best friend forever, and Hadley has really had a rough path. So Hadley has had a lot of struggles in her life that have brought her to where she is today and the person she is. And there's a lot of relationship struggles that come from that. And I loved how in this story you get to see her transform as a person. The example of faith that Braxton brings into their friendship is amazing. I loved reading that part of the story. So Hadley finds herself single because of finding out about some infidelity that happens, and she is supposed to go on this road trip that she planned for her and her boyfriend to her friend's wedding that she is in, and she doesn't want to go to this wedding solo, so she asked her best friend to tag along. And so they go on this road trip that she had planned, this romantic road trip that she had planned with her boyfriend, which ends up being with her best friend, and we see the chaos and fun that happens along the way. I love the friendship that is in this story. It develops further, but the strength of the friendship before and how it progresses throughout the story. I love the way that the author how the faith was woven into the story. I love how Hadley comes in without faith. She knows her best friend has this faith in Christ, and she doesn't understand it. She's kind of looking at it from an outsider's perspective, and getting that time together with her friend, and she can see how his faith is interwoven within his life. I really enjoyed that part of the story. It was a super cute read. I ended up about 4 stars for this book, and I will definitely pick up more from this author. Alright, my most anticipated book of the year. I read that this month. Across the Ages by Gabrielle Meyer. I 5-starred this book. I don't think anybody's surprised. I buddy read this with Bethany from Bethany's Bookshelf. We had so much fun going through, just trying to see sorry, these books, I don't like how they show fingerprints. So in this book we follow Caroline, and I loved how, one, this is a little bit different than the other ones, that Caroline doesn't know what her gift is. She has no one to explain to her what is going on and why does this happen? So if you haven't read the Timeless series, the premise is that these people are gifted. They are born with two lives. So they live one life in one timeline and another timeline, and they have one day here and then one day in the next life, and they bounce back and forth. So by the time they're 20, they've actually lived like 40 years of actual life between the two timelines. And on a certain birthday, they have to choose which timeline they're going to stay in. Now, there's certain rules that go along with it, like if you do something that's going to change history, you forfeit that life and you are in the other life. I love the perspective of, well, what would happen if they didn't know what was going on, if there was no one to guide them? Because normally in the books, they have one parent that also had this gift and can kind of guide them through and help them understand what's going on and why the world is the way it is. But in this one, Caroline doesn't know. She doesn't have a parent with her that can explain anything to her. And I love that different dynamic because of not knowing. So in one timeline, let's get the years for me. 1727, she starts in South Carolina and she ends up running away, ends up being on a pirate ship and trying to find her mother, and all of the things that go from there. And the other timeline is in 1927, and that one is in Minnesota. So in 1927, she is a preacher's daughter, and her father is heavily involved in Prohibition, and he is a well-known preacher. He even preaches on the radio. So she's kind of living life as a prominent public figure, where in 1727 she's living with pirates. Like, what a different dynamic in life. I love the way that Gabriel Meyer puts faith into the books. And this one, like, it started from the very beginning. There's just so many lines that I highlighted. I don't know if you can hear them. The twins are out there singing about Paw Patrol. Rubble and Marshall. All right, back to the book. I love how Gabriel Meyer puts faith in these books. And it's not, and it's deep faith. It is that just self-sacrificing and just completely letting God do his will in your life. I am here for it. I love reading books with examples of people who say that constant yes to the Lord over and over and over again. And she shows characters that have gone way off the rails and how they find their way back to the Lord. She does an amazing job with characters in their faith. I highly recommend it. It's 5 stars all the way through. Really, really recommend this series. If you haven't read it, please start with the first one. This is the 4th book in the series, and the 5th one comes out in May. All right, the next book I finished was for my book club. It's Good for the Soul Women's Book Club, and that is Better Watch Out by Natalie Walters. This is my first... Hi! Naughty! What are you doing, buddy? I don't know where I left off, but the book that I read for book club this month, the Good for the Soul Women's Book Club over on Instagram. This is Better Watch Out by Natalie Walters. It's my first book by Natalie Walters, and it will not be my last. I loved Franny's bucket list things to do in New York City at Christmas. All of those things with the suspenseful twist that I loved. So we follow Franny, who is going to New York City to surprise her boyfriend and maybe even hoping for a proposal. And she kind of immediately finds herself single at Christmas time. So she's got this whole trip planned and she's by herself. Her brother works in the FBI and asked one of his friends to go watch out for her and get her to the airport safely. Franny is not having it. She really wants to finish some of the stuff on her bucket list. And a snowstorm comes in, strands her in New York, can't get out anyway, so they knock off a couple things on her bucket list. The person that he was helping to protect, everything got mixed up, and now people are out for Franny instead of the person who was originally the target. So we kind of have some suspenseful twists throughout it. It doesn't get too scary. It's very lighthearted still. I really enjoyed this one. I'm so glad I finally picked it up. It had been on my list for a while, and it was a perfect read to get me back in the mood to read. So this is the first book I finished when I was trying to get back in, and this was just a couple days ago. I finished this one, so I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5, 4.5. I think it was 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I can't wait to see more from this author. All right, the last one. I'm not trying to fit these in before they realize that I'm not out there any longer. A Cross Country Christmas by Courtney Walsh. I never go wrong with Courtney Walsh. I picked this one up on audio, and it was the perfect book to listen to while I was finishing all the Christmas decorations yesterday after my kids had gone to bed, and I absolutely loved it. Courtney Walsh just has a way of writing stories that, one, keep you entertained consistently. They make you laugh out loud. They also have a lot of like real human experience things in them, where there's loss, there's deep grief, but there's also lighthearted fun and swoony love, and they're clean, cute reads, and they always are mood lifters for me. So if you ever are in need of a book for kind of a pick-me-up, these, I always recommend Courtney Walsh for a good pick-me-up book. 5 stars. I can't wait to get to the next Courtney Walsh Christmas book that's on my list, but I'm going to give it a little bit so I can kind of space them out in my brain and give them their own time to enjoy them. All right, that's it for November. That was it. 6 books, 5 books, I don't know. It was a very slow reading month. I think it's important in your reading life to make sure you have balance and make sure that you are taking care of yourself and giving yourself that mental space when it is necessary. Like I said, this month was definitely difficult. Every year I think that it's not, and then I look back and yeah, it really was. But we are in December now, and I am so excited to get through all of the books with you. I'm so thankful you're here with me. If you're still here, leave me a comment down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.